Good evening. Calling the Board of Education meeting to order on, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin.
Here.
Mrs. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Hickman.
Here.
Mrs. Lee.
Here.
Ms. Long.
Here. Mr. Appleman, do we have some guests,
Yes.
please?
Steve Morrison and administrator.
Great, thank you. ZEA comments. Mr. Morrison?
Keep it short and sweet. Just want to say congratulations. We've come a long way since my senior year. And I look forward to working with everybody.
Great,
Thanks, Steve.
thank you, Steve. Student reports and updates, maybe some things taking place in the future with this. Zanesville Community High School report updates.
So I have that. Mr. Moore is at basketball this evening on the radio if anybody wants to turn him on. So normally this comes after their meeting. So this is all new information to me. So currently their enrollment is 140. They started the year with 65 students and have more than doubled that. There's exceptional ed students. The total is 49. The current waiting list of 10. 4 students have completed all of the requirements and I believe have received their diplomas already. They'll be invited back to walk at graduation if they choose to do so. And they have a 99.9 retention rate right now. As far as things that are happening down there, the fall end of course exams ended on 12/22 of 21 with a 93% test completion rate. STARS testing, the new students are tested upon their orientation. Current students will be tested between now and the end of the year. Must be 13 weeks between tests. They currently have 5 students who have applied to go out to Mideast. And they have an Ohio Means Jobs presentation scheduled for this Friday, January 14th.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Reports from the Board of Education. Approval of the board minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the minutes of the Zanesville Board of Education regular meeting, December 16th, 2021. May I have a motion?
Baldwin move. Hickman second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Report of the treasurer. Mike?
Okay, first off, any questions on any of the December reports? I know we have new board members, so if you have anything that caught your eye that you want clarification on or anything like that. I can say that on our first January payment, which occurred last Friday, they have implemented the new formula. However, they've not implemented the modules to be able to see exactly what they gave you other than just a total. So I can like see what we got for ELL or, you know, the special ed money. I can see those types of things, but I can't see what all the enrollments and all the factors are just yet. They hope to have that up by the end of the month, they said. We did get a catch up. So where our net payment has been about $875,000 each time, you know, twice a month, we did get a $2.5 million total payment on Friday, which catches up. So it equates to about a $920,000 per pay. So that's what I'm expecting to get, not this Friday, but next Friday when we get the second half of January. So we'll start getting a little bit better idea of where we're at as far as, you know, revenues. Expenditures have been pretty consistent, obviously, with, we still have one open contract in negotiation, but we should start being able to see where we're at specifically more in tune for the 21-22 school year. when we start talking about the budget. So again, as we have a couple new members, Ohio law requires each government to do their budget in the 7th month of the preceding fiscal year. So Muskingum County does an alternative tax budget, which is due January 20th. So I'll get this sent over to them once we have approval this evening. Just to highlight going through it, obviously there's, the page of taxes levied. I've received all that information from Tina Hubner at the auditor's office prior to the fire, shutting them down last week. But the two items we have to do individually are general fund and bond retirement fund because of the taxes that are associated with those. So as you see, I've got just a little bit of a negative balance for 22-23 estimate. Still waiting to see those modules come into play as to exactly where we'll land. There's a couple safety nets. One, it's our changes are phased in over 6 years. So we're getting basically 1/6 of the increase we should have gotten on the formula change for this year. The other side of that is if enrollment is down, which it is, and we don't know, is that down with online schools? Is that down with residential? What are all the factors? They're taking the average of 19 and 20, and that's what they're paying on. So if you are down below 19 and 20's average, you're getting paid 19 and 20 versus 21-22 school year. So there's a couple safety nets that are helping there. We get a little bit better. This is a 18-month fluid document. This is just a snapshot today. What do we think we're going to get next year? Expenses are pretty close. We're allowing for the contractual raises, the different things that are already built in. So these are, once again, once we get a better picture of those modules and exactly what the formula is going to give, to this district compared to our peers, then we'll have a better idea. Now the bond fund is a little bit different because it's, all local tax for the most part. There's some TPP reimbursement still on there. So the bond retirement fund will be pretty close. It'll all just be on the percentage of collections on the actual taxes. As you get back further into the budget, nothing else is broken out individually, but you'll have special revenue funds, you'll have enterprise funds, you'll have capital project funds. Generally, the only one that fluctuates a great deal is the special revenue. That includes all of the federal programs, all of those types of grants. Right now, it's inflated because of all the ESSER money. So again, as we try to estimate how much we'll get and spend next year versus the following year, what's left over. So that's why if you were to compare this document with prior years, you're going to see a significant increase in revenues.
And we're getting ESSER 3 funds?
We still have a little bit left in ESSER 1. Most of what's left belongs to the non-publics. ESSER 2 has only, I think we've drawn about 600,000 of the 7 million. ESSER 3 is about the same. ESSER 3, the difference is, which was the most recent one in March, 20% of that has to be spent directly on education. So some of the summer school overruns in the high school, middle school that don't have 21st century, those were charged to ESSER 3 because it's directly related to education. So those two are going to kind of go probably in sync. And ESSER 2 will probably get the bulk of the construction early because it expires sooner.
Yep.
And then they'll shift over to ESSER 3.
And you said 20% of ESSER?
ESSER 3. So
ESSER
20% of the almost 16 million
goes-
has to be spent directly on education.
Education.
So that's about 3.2 million, I think is what Steve and I had allocated, salaries, supplies, things directly related to, and then we bust all summer last year. So, those types of things are what has been incurred so far. ESSER 1 took a lot of the PPE, a lot of the upgrades to HVAC, those types of things that were the more immediate need at the time.
The busing was to increase enrollment in those programs to provide transportation for students to get there.
So if any questions on the budget, like I said, it's a moving document, for the duration, all the way until we get through, the 22-23 school year. The next thing that will come up on the plate, will be the tax rates will come up in March, to collect the necessary amounts, especially in something like the bond fund. The bond fund, people kind of get confused. It's passed at a millage at the time, and as property values go up, the millage goes down to coincide with, what we need to pay the debt. And so I don't think we'll have any more refunding issues with any of the debt. The one we did 2 years ago will expire in 24. It will be paid off. The one we just did last year will go to 29. So I don't think it will have any. And again, interest rates would dictate whether you would even be interested in doing that. If you're going to get a better rate and it was worth your while. But we've saved the taxpayers approximately 1.2 million in future interest costs by doing those refunding. And then the last item that we have several donations, and I think we've even had a couple since the agenda was done, but we appreciate the prosecutor's office for giving us a portion of the drug. Mostly that's forfeiture money that they have to spend on drug prevention and education. That should all be one. Got two separate ones. And then the history department got money from Appalachian Ohio for civics. Taylor McHenry's awarded money to both the archery and JROTC, and I believe Taylor McHenry also, we haven't received the check down here yet, but $5,000 or $8,000
Do the right thing.
for the do the right thing at the middle school. So I guess they got these two separated. Didn't need to be, so the two different motions, one for the first four items, and then one for item 5 with accepting the donation agreement.
I did, like, we had talked about, the cash stuff that the concessions, and have you looked into any other alternative tracking?
Okay, so short of probably putting a computer in or cash register type situation just to track, what was started and what would end the night. But we do have a resignation on the agenda here for concession. So I think that would be the time to probably try to implement something we can use just about any, use the same system they use in the cafeterias to, but we would need a device for them somehow to track, both inventory and or cash, if that's what we want to do. I mean, right now we're still at the end of the night, whether it's, Mr. Barnhouse or Mr. Young or Mr. Aaronholt, that's sort of the gym administrator that night. They're counting the money with whichever concession person. So whether it's, Mrs. Doyle or Mrs. Bunning, and then the deposit is dropped in the night box at the bank.
I noticed there were some names on the reconciliation that probably shouldn't be on there from previous.
Or,
Dalton was still on there.
oh, yeah, Mr. Dalton was.
And minor deal.
Correct. Now, what we have done at the middle school, the deposits used to be just kept at the school. So Adrian and I have set up, we're keeping the boys and girls what they have. They have separate basketball concession accounts. So they're keeping what they have currently. And then we're going to create a concessions account because again, some nights are better than others, but everybody's time is equal in working. So we're going to sort of set up the same way we've done at the high school. It's going to go and it's going to be at his discretion based on who worked their specific nights. When the boys are home, the girls are on the road, and vice versa. So he's going to keep track, and as long as people are working, then he'll help out with their banquets and those types of things at the end of the year out of those concessions accounts. They're still free to do their own fundraising and do all the things they want to do internally.
Outside of that.
But the concessions themselves is, as long as parents are working, 7th grade parents are working 8th grade games, 8th grade parents are working 7th grade games, then, just because one made $300 one night, and the other only made 200, they still work the same, roughly the same amount of time. So we actually have that back to set up back in my office. He brought everything down, so Teresa and I just need to go through and get it all set up.
Okay, so we need to approve the alternative tax. Approve the alternative tax budget as required.
The all four.
We want to do them all. Okay, for all of those. Income for office for the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. May I have a motion?
Hickman will move.
Lee will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Next one will be for the donations that we went through just a few minutes ago. May I have a motion to accept the donation grants awards?
Long move.
Hold on a second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes. Going to turn things over to Dr. Baker for his report, please.
Thank you. As you may have noticed with the poster that's sitting behind you, that January is School Board Recognition Month. And as such, the Ohio School Boards Association has presented each of you with a certificate that's at your seat. Thank you for your time and energy that you put into Zanesville City Schools and the community of Zanesville. So we thank you, the Ohio School Boards Association. Thank you for all that you do for the children of Zanesville.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 1, resignation classified. Approve the resignation of Brittany Dusenberry, special ed aide at Zane Gray Elementary, effective December 29th of 21. Reason for the resignation is personal.
May I have a motion?
Hold on a minute.
Clerk, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yeah.
Item 2, employment classified. Approve the employment of Raymond Harris as a bus aide. Effective date of employment is January 10th of 22. Salary will be regular aide, step 0 from the appropriate salary schedule pending certification and background check.
Motion, please.
Lee will move. Long will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 3, employee transfers classified. Approve the transfer of Charles Hodge, bus driver, to reflect van driver, 8 hours per day, effective January 3rd of 22, pending required certification and background check. Rate of pay to remain the same. And approve the transfer of Tisha Lichner, 3-hour food service, to reflect 7-hour food service, effective January 3rd of 22, pending required certification and background check. Rate of pay to remain the same as cafeteria 2, step 5 from the appropriate salary schedule.
May I have a motion?
Hickman will move.
Clerk will second.
Clerk?
Yes. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Item 4, salary adjustments certificated. Approve the following personnel as listed to be granted salary adjustments effective with the current contract year for second semester only. Reason for the adjustment is due to having completed requirements for a new classification on the salary schedule by virtue of additional study pending receipt of official transcripts.
May I have a motion?
Lee will move. Long second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 5, supplemental contracts. Approve the resignation of Carrie Bunning, concessions, effective January 7th of 22. Reason for the resignation is personal. And approve the following supplemental contract as listed, pending required certifications and background check for the 21-22 school year.
May I have a motion?
Hickman will move.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 6, resignation date correction, classified. Approve a correction to the resignation date of December 21st of 21 of Carl Border, bus aide, to reflect December 3rd of 21. And the reason for his resignation is personal.
May I have a motion?
Baldwin will move.
Leo second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Item 7, volunteers. Approve the following list of volunteers with thanks and appreciation as listed for the Zanesville City Schools for the 21-22 school year, pending appropriate background checks.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
Clerk will second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 8, employment substitutes, home instructors. Approve the following substitutes as listed as and when needed, when appropriate certification and background checks for the 21-22 school year. And that includes substitute teachers and substitute bus aides. Also approve the following home instructor as listed as and when needed, pending appropriate certification and background check for the 21-22 school year.
May I have a motion?
Hickman will move.
Clerk will second. Any discussion?
Yeah, are these folks part of that revised requirement
On the
for,
teachers,
yeah,
I don't believe so. Doty is okay.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 9, FMLA leave of absence. Approve a leave of absence for Samantha Newton, teacher at National Road, effective December 7th of 21 to December 6th of 22. Approve a leave of absence for Jude Swingle, custodian at National Road Elementary, effective December 23rd of 21 to January 9th of 22. Approve a leave of absence for Allison Burkhardt, teacher at Zanesville High School, effective November 23rd of 21 to February 15th of 22. Approve a leave of absence for Christine Wisecarver, custodian at Zanesville High School, effective December 16th of 21 to December 15th of 22. Approve a leave of absence for Tricia Burnett, teacher at Zane Gray Intermediate, effective January 20th of 22 to April 20th of 22. Approve a leave of absence for Margaret Lee, Ames coordinator, Power School, effective December 21st of 21 to February 1st of 22. And approve a leave of absence for Darlene Baker, secretary at Zanesville High School, effective December 15th of 21 to March 15th of 22.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
Long the second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 10, salary adjustment classified. Approve Stacy Ransom, 3-hour food service to be paid at the regular aid classification, step 0 for the period of January 3rd of 22 to January 7th of 22 as a van aid. Adjustment due to initial bid win of van aid position and voluntarily return to original food service position within 8-day probationary period.
May I have a motion?
Hickman will move.
Clerk will second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 11, an MOU with Zane State College, and that's a data sharing agreement. And this is connected with the College Credit Plus program. Approve the attached 22-23 MOU and data sharing agreement between Zanesville High School, Zanesville City Schools, and Zane State College, which enables high school students to enroll in public college on a full or part-time basis and complete non-sectarian, non-remedial courses for post-secondary credit or for high school and post-secondary credit.
May I have a motion?
Lee will move.
Hickman will second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Item 12, MOU with the Corporation for Ohio Appalachian Development Foster Grandparent Program, Senior Companion Program. Approve the January 1st, 22 through December 31st of 24 MOU between Zanesville City Schools and the Corporation for Ohio Appalachian Development Foster Grandparent Program, Senior Companion Program.
May I have a motion?
Baldwin will move.
Long will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 13, organizational chart. Approve the attached updated Zanesville City School District organizational chart.
A motion, please.
Baldwin will move.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion?
There was, the only thing I've reached out to Doug about is that there were some, I don't have an issue with the organizational chart. It's just that there were some job descriptions that didn't match or were incomplete. So I thought that was a good time to kind of double check, but I think it got corrected.
Yeah, I sent you the correction this morning.
So
Thank you.
just wanted to
Doing
let
that.
everyone know.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 14, Youth Villages Contract. Approve the attached contract with Youth Villages of Memphis, Tennessee to provide education for a student at the cost of $169.27 per day. This contract would start on 11/10 of 21, while said student is placed with Youth Villages not to exceed 200 days for the fiscal year 22.
May I have a motion?
Baldwin will move.
Lee will second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 15, a resolution declaring that an urgent necessity exists for HVAC replacement at the administration building. Approve the attached resolution declaring that an urgent necessity exists for HVAC replacements at the administration building. Some existing units are not working and parts are not available for repairs. Able Incorporated is the lowest price per unit from quotes obtained from various vendors.
May I have a motion?
Hickman will move.
Clark is second. Is there any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 16, John D. Salzberger Memorial Stadium Field Turf Repair. Approve an agreement with the Moats Group to repair the turf drainage issue at the John D. Salzberger Memorial Stadium. The scope of work includes treating and replacing the base as necessary to correct all drainage issues. There is no cost for the repair as the project is still under warranty.
We have a motion.
Hickman will move.
Long will second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, so if this doesn't work, they're probably be in March to roll it up and replace the base.
Are they going to, and I've asked for this information before, but are they going to do those tests before they sew it back together? The drainage tests and stuff?
Correct. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna split it, so think of every 5 yards. They're gonna split it down between the fives and roll it back.
Mhm.
And run a machine through to fill up the base. Then they'll do drainage tests again before they put it back down. And they're gonna glue, right?
It's glue it back together.
Back together.
So it's got to be over 30 degrees.
They're not
for
gonna
the
reuse the base.
New down, is that what I read? New down.
All
On
those
the pot,
trenches.
yeah,
In those
trenches.
40-inch
Trenches.
areas, they will, between the fives, they'll be part of the way on each five,
Mhm.
2.5 and 2.5.
Mhm.
And it also runs down the
They'll get
sideline.
rid of that base, the compacted
Mhm.
bad base. They'll take it out, export it off-site, well, to the, if we want to put somewhere, so they'll keep it on site and they'll get rid of it, whatever we want to do.
Mhm.
Then they will bring in the number
mine limestone, the new limestone and stuff cleaned. I requested it to be cleaned,
Mhm,
washed, no dust, no dirt, because that's what causes
mhm,
compaction, as you well know.
mhm.
So that's the point, I do believe, is what they told us, so. And if that does not work, then
There is piping below
Yes.
that surface.
Mhm.
And they don't do any camera work or there's
I
nothing.
think they're all open.
they are open, they checked that and they ran water and stuff into those.
Mhm.
On the far side, they all drained into the main. They seem to be working.
So it's the sub.
It's the sub, it's just.
Okay.
It's very, very compact.
I just didn't see that testing in the breakdown of what their plan was. So I just wanted to make sure, if it's warranted, I guess.
Right, and then a new warranty will begin once it's
Once it's done.
Okay. So once they're done and it's actually working, which obviously we'll find out in the spring,
Mhm.
then the new warranty it'll have a new warranty date.
And that length is for that warranty.
1 year on the actual
I
work,
believe it's
but it's,
10 years. 10.
but I thought there was certain pieces to it that were, some's longer than others.
Yes.
Oh, so there's a combination. Okay.
So the 1 year of the work itself, that's what resets. The warranty of the turf and the base, the life of it is still the same.
Right.
Correct.
And we do have a maintenance agreement, which we've always had, where they come in during the year once or twice, and they do the treatment, they do the inspection, they do all that stuff. It's like $3,500 a year. And that keeps our warranty
Active.
active. As long as we do that maintenance, then our warranty on the turf and all the components
Okay.
is good.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes. Item 17, policy items for consideration. Include policy 5722, policy 7300, policy 8740. There's no action needed on those policies. Those are just for review. And policy items for adoption will be policy 5630.01 and policy 8651, and action would be needed on those items.
May I have a motion?
Baldwin.
Hickman, a second.
Any discussion?
I think we just had use of.
Yeah, we just had the use of the non-routine
Yeah, right,
school
correct.
buses.
Yeah,
So I have a question when these are updated. These are updated per the policy that from this.
Neola, we get
That's what I thought,
a
okay.
policy from Neola, which is the vendor that we use for school board policies. They have recommended changes and required changes, and then obviously on the required changes, we have to make those to stay in compliant with the law. The recommended changes, we send those out to the departments to look at those, and we look at what our current practice is, or do we need to update our practice with some of those recommendations, and then we make the policy that fit.
Okay. Thank you.
anything else? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Okay, on K reports, discussion items, the first item I have was from the equity and adequacy of school funding. For the board members that were on the board last year, you may recall that we had received a letter asking for financial support for the pending lawsuit on the Ed Choice vouchers. At that time, the board decided they did not want to contribute to that. Last week, the lawsuit was actually filed and is progressing. We once again received a letter asking if we want to now join that the lawsuit has been filed. And so just wanted to throw that out for discussion. It's $2 per student, so it'd be about $6,000 is what they're looking for the life of the lawsuit. So it would be
And Ed
6,000, yes.
And in Ed Choice, we're losing 644,000.
Correct.
What it was last year.
Yeah.
Like, so
Last year.
I don't know that we'll see it, what it actually is this year. Because they're directly funded now, it doesn't come to us
Okay.
and then withdrawn back. You know, so those things along with the community schools,
They don't have to report that somewhere?
we'll have to probably look at it from a non-public side of it versus our side of it to see what they're receiving. You know,
So
and-
what would the lawsuit be giving us then if we won the lawsuit?
They're trying
To
to
get rid of
get
the,
rid of that choice. And therefore, or, you know, obviously put greater limits on it as it expands.
Right.
So it used to be in the formula, if there are 4,000 kids living in Zanesville City schools, it starts with 4,000 kids. And then it takes off what goes to other publics,
through open enrollment.
what goes to community schools. Most of ours are either here or Foxfire. And then it has the Ed Choice, and it has the Peterson Scholarship, and the different things that would show you what comes off. When I got the report Friday, it just shows 2,827 students we got paid for. I don't have anything that tells me how many of our kids are on that choice at Rosecrans or Fenwick or Seventh-day Adventist or North Catholic or anywhere else. You know, that's what I'm waiting to see what shows up in those modules. As where if you look at our forecast, you see the 3 years of actual and then the 5-year forecast. The glaring number is going to be that we've got about $4 or $5 million less in revenue. That's because we're no longer getting them and spending it out, in essence, never receiving it. It's just a deduction from our payment. But you also see that reduction in purchase services. So it kind of looks funny when you look at it. My gosh, we got $5 million less. We're spending $5 million less on the bottom too. So until we get those modules, I don't know what to tell you how they're going to show it. You know, whether we can go to a non-public payment and see what they're getting, and if it lists what's coming, because it's all on a, you know, I could see anybody's foundation funding report for any district in the state. You know, it's not a secret. It's not just tied to our safe accounts or anything like that. So maybe that's where we're going to have to go to see exactly maybe where it's coming from on their side.
So what I need is this something that you would want on the February agenda
If you want to do it.
if you want to
Don't
do it?
want to do it through that.
Was there, can I ask what was the reason last time for not doing it? Or was it just because the lawsuit hadn't been filed yet?
I don't know the exact reason for that. I think it was part
Trying to
of
remember what the
yeah.
discussion
I
was.
just think it's,
Wanted to see for
one
one,
would
I
actually
think, if it would actually
Good
come
point.
to fruition.
Fruition, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking out loud, so.
Yeah.
well, there's a time to think about it before the next meeting. If you want to go that direction, just let us know. So we'll
We can put it on the agenda, right? And just
deny it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, put it on the
Approve
agenda.
that. Let's approve
Yeah.
or deny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
The next item that we have is actually quite complex. For the last several years, we've been working with a company called Guaranteed Clean Energy in regard to a solar project for the entire district. And that project was to be implemented as far as actual construction and work by December of 21. And now that we moved into 22, and that work has not started, they are asking for an extension to get that rolling. Now, part of the reason that they're also asking for an extension, like all things, they had some bumps with COVID, and there's also been some bumps with contractors. And then within the last couple of months, what they have told us are the incentives that will be offered in 22 are much better than the incentives that were offered in 21. And so they don't want to break ground in 21 and lose out on any incentives that were greater in 22. That having been said, we got some mixed messages with one of the people that have overseen our utilities as to whether it's going to be a savings for the district or not. And Mike's had most of the conversations with that representative, and let him go ahead and kind of fill you in on those details.
Okay, so as I went back through looking for documents yesterday, this started back in March of 19. Just to give you an idea of how long this has been going on with the resolution that we paid $2,500 for them to start the preliminary work to do a project. And that's our only cost of the project. So that was done back then. I think they went through maybe some personnel changes themselves, some of the delays in getting back to us. But to fast forward to where we're at, the discussions have been a little bit more in depth with regards to rates and savings and those types of things. We use Meta Solutions to do our utility auditing on a monthly basis. We send up the electric bills, we send up the gas bills, we send up the water bills. Just a couple months ago, they caught an increase on the water bill that ended up being a leak at the soccer field down over the hill. So we were able to recoup the sewer part of that bill and have the leak repaired. So we certainly get our money. It's $1,500 or whatever it is per year for Tony to look at it. And he does normally send back, hey, I see Zane's electric's up. Any thoughts, as to what happened? So he is of the opinion that, and so I guess we'll back up one step here. We get our electric right now from direct energy. It's transmitted by AEP, but we buy our source from direct energy as part of the consortium through Meta. That current rate is about 4.5 cents. When Tony started looking at the savings projection from Guaranteed Clean Energy, he noticed that we're paying about 9 cents, or what 9 cents is what they were comparing it to. So he's of the opinion that we will spend about $90,000 more per year because they're using AEP rates and not direct energy rates. So that's kind of where we're kind of stuck in.
Our rep from Guaranteed Clean Energy and our rep from the Meta, they've been talking, but there's a difference of opinion. So I guess my question is, do we want to bring in Andy from Guaranteed Clean Energy to present again, since it's been 3 years and from their initial proposal, and maybe to discuss that, and then have that on the agenda, much like the equity, to either approve or deny the extension.
We spent from July of 20 to June of 21. We spent $561,624 on electric. We have saved, Tony and I went through it, since we switched to direct energy, and I want to say it's 5 or 6 years ago. We've saved $327,000 in energy costs of what we would have paid had we not made that switch. And as you guys recall, last month we switched to go to direct energy with the gas. They're still working on a bridge for us from now until July of 23, when we can get into the consortium on the new deal. And it went from 370 to 390 just recently, but Tony's working on trying to get it down to 350 for us as a bridge into that new agreement that would go from 23 to 25. So I guess for me, Tony's the one I've dealt with since day one of being here. So 7.5 years, he and I have been at meetings together. We've conversed many times on the phone, emails back and forth. There's no real reason for him to tell us not to do it if he didn't think it was going to be a deal that maybe we weren't going to get the savings we thought. And the one thing he said to me today, which I think we maybe all kind of thought whatever solar is generated on those buildings, we're buying that solar from AEP or from the solar company. It's not ours. If we own the equipment, then it would be ours. And it would come off of our electric purchase and our use. So I agree with Doug that it's probably best, because even, Kyle and Brett weren't here when this started. It's probably best to maybe have him come in, speak to all of you as a group. You can ask your questions specific to him, and then we can make a decision whether we want to do the extension and go forward with the project. If we want to pull the plug on the project, but at that point, we've got to bring in Matt's County or somebody to look for the avenue of coming at this contract clearly states work to be completed by 12/31/21. So it's now obviously not completed. So before we spend any money legally, we want to get our own ducks in a row first and decide how we want to handle it and move forward.
Just my opinion, I would rather not file any extensions, and if we can do away with that previous agreement completely. To me, that it's less muddy than starting over. I mean, certainly willing to listen to somebody if there's something different or, something that can help us, but to extend that contract to me just seems like we're muddying the water some. So I'd rather just, we can avoid that completely and just start over if that's.
Right, because I think where the thought process was back, try to think back the entire almost 3 years now.
I think if it was an
We were thinking the solar was gonna be like no cost. And I think the other side of what Tony's indicating is that they're telling us there'll be no transmission costs. Well, that's maybe true on the solar, because it's right there on the bill. But whatever supplemental cost there is, additional electric in the wintertime, where the days aren't as long, you're not generating as much solar. What we're purchasing, there's still gonna be a transmission cost on that as well as the actual cost for the supply.
Now, the solar also includes compressed natural gas generators to pick up as opposed to pulling off the grid in the winters. But that pulling off the grid is like third part down, should we need it.
Answer what you're saying. You and I are on the same page.
Yeah, I'll
So
Let's, yeah.
move on from that.
So you want Andy to come in and talk and then make a decision?
Sure. Make it work for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then it's not on there, but the last thing I wanted to talk about, just to remind you, we do drug testing for our student athletes right before the fall season, before the winter season, and before the spring season. And we, as the board, cover the cost of that drug testing. I believe it's $20 for
the first initial testing to start the season, the athlete pays $20.
Yeah.
Of the cost for all random testing during the season. The district pays.
Right. There's a random each season as well. Now that we've done this for a couple of years, one of the items that we're running into is if a student misses that day of the testing, we have to search out another school giving testing using the same company. And then we send our students there, and that creates a little bit of a delay for their participation. And it doesn't happen a lot, but are usually about 2 or 3 student athletes a season that for whatever reason they weren't here or weren't able to attend that initial screening. And so I don't believe it's part of the policy, but it's part of our procedure that they have to test on site. And what we're looking at exploring doing is if somebody misses that initial site, that we allow them to go off-site to one of the health agencies around us at their cost to do the same screening and present the result. So we just want to kind of give you a heads up that that's what we're thinking. We're just trying to accommodate everybody so there's not a loss of activity. And if you not want to go that way, then kind of let me know on that, but that's what we're wanting to change. Kevin, did you want to add anything on that?
Said I spoke to one of the agencies, the
Okay.
president is on the
Okay.
vacation, so on next Monday, should contact me, we'll schedule a meeting with Mr. Aaron.
And what we're doing is working with an agency that we're already working with that currently already does those screenings, just to provide an alternative site for those people that, for whatever reason, missed that big initial screening. That's all I had on.
Thank you. Dr. Baker. With some comments. Good.
I don't think any of you guys have any updates since you just got on the committee.
Are you gonna send the DLT meeting,
Yes, I got that on my notes.
okay,
I
thank
don't-
you.
I
I didn't know if you added that one.
Yes.
I can tell you the audit's completed for both schools, has been filed. I believe part of that filing is the auditors go in and upload all the federal information to the clearinghouse. So I believe that's ready for me to go in and certify both of them. If you would like to have an exit conference with them, we can schedule one. Got discretion. Want to, I can reach out to them as far as dates. Was it, Brett, was it you and Scott, you and Brian that was on the committee for? So either way, current committee can do the exit conference. So if you guys want to have one, let me know. I can probably get them, early evening, like would be for board meeting time, 6 o'clock or so, or Friday, it's better for you. So just let me know. I can reach out to them, or we can just go with their report. And you guys can ask me the questions and we'll go from there.
Anything else? Committee updates. Anybody needs to know? Executive session. I think we were just going to briefly go into that. Whereas the Board of Education and other government bodies are required by statute to take official action and to conduct all deliberations upon official business only to open meetings unless the subject matter is specifically exempt by law. Whereas the minutes need only reflect the general subject matter of discussion in executive session, and whereas the members of the public body may hold an executive session only at a regular or special meeting for the sole purpose of consideration of any of the matters set forth below. Now, therefore, be it resolved under the provisions of ORC 121.22, the board hereby enters into executive session for the reasons stated below. Specialized details regarding to security arrangements. Time,
7:22.
may I have a motion?
Leo move.
Long second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
He said that. We did.
He didn't say that.
All right, we're returning from executive session at 8:20 PM
Need a
to
motion to
public
come back up.
session. Could I have a motion to return?
Baldwin will move.
Hickman will second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. Be it resolved that the Zanesville State School Board of Education meeting is adjourned. Time is 8:20 PM. May I have a motion?
Leo move.
Long second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.